break that bitch's neck. Break that bitch's neck immediately. Toes gotta go that way. So here's a story about a fucking name lawsuit. Who we suing? Some motherfucker on Tuesday. We say, yeah, go that way. Figure it all the fuck out. Do a screenshot on Tuesday, print that bitch out, and say, well, my dad did the same shit. And say, well, great. Did you go to college? Did you have 10 to 15 minutes to go to an occupational therapist? Oh, wait. Call that bitch the registered nurse. That happened in Kwai Chung. That happened my whole fucking life. Yeah, but let's talk about how mad I am at everybody. So, Fuckville is absolutely fantastic. I'm going on a damn train ride, and I'm writing everybody a book. Guess what? It's been going with me for a few years. We're going to let it out. And he said, oh, you're going to write and talk about your stuff. I said, yeah, I'll throw it in a journal. I'll send it to the goddamn law school. I said, well, what's the courtroom doing? They say, oh, well, we call you a lawyer if you can pass the bar. And I said, well, throw that motherfucking book somewhere else. Because you want to tell me I'm competent? I can do that on Tuesday. I read a book. I call it Law School. And I said, well, we can't go to law school that way. I said, there's this doc named Donald. I said, bankruptcy is fantastic. And I said, it actually is. I said, can you fax these documents? And I said, never, not now. And I said, this is the response page. That's a red one because I wrote that as I was asking them. I protested. Go. It's in a very nice way. Call it on Tuesday.
Attention please. We regret to inform you that this train will terminate service at this station.
What a great fucking Tuesday. Just gotta write a love letter called a lawsuit. What's the consulate talking about? Well, okay. Oh, here we go. Anything falls, oh well. Okay, so yeah. Please advise emergency land, Hong Kong. I said, oh no, by the way, I do not identify as U.S. It's sovereign, because I've got a sovereign nation, they call it India. We had to walk off just to walk right back on.
Where to go?
The last station, I think it's called Bangsu.
Bangsu, you hear Bangsu?
This is Bangsu?
Yeah.
Kampuka, how to say? The thank you? Thank you.
Thank you. Kapun.
Kapun?
Yeah.
Kap?
Kap.
Kapun kap. Thank you so much. He said, honey, you're already here. Have a fantastic day. Bye. I said over here and write this goddamn book on Tuesday. Because motherfucker said, you gotta write a book and type it 3 times and then send it to Sallie Mae and call it a publishing company. I said, motherfucker, you gotta process that. It's just delusional as fuck. Let me get on the goddamn train. And I'm gonna say, well, I wrote this shit in the hospital. And they said, well, this ain't gonna work because you done wrote way over the page. And I said, oh, did she call me delusional too? And she said, well, if he's competent. Here's the funny thing. Miss Thing, and I don't know what her name was. Some say, her name's already on here, Miss Chen. Somebody called and they said, he sounds really excited, stab him. And I'm not going to say they said stab him, but somebody along the way said, call the U.S. Refugee Agency. That was Ellie, so I'll thank him for that because he's an officer. But Anton, truly, I met him once and he was just like, oh yeah, you're fine, go to wherever you want to go. I said, oh, have a great Tuesday. But, so we're going to get back to Dad's lawsuit. And I say, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I'll say pursuing it is actually a fun journey. So, thanks for telling me to read the Bible 10 times and telling me to curse your mom out. But here's how Glenville works. It says, he said I like drugs. I said, you know what? What drug are you on? He said, AA, church, college. Get the fuck out. I said, we're running from house to house. It's going to be quite a thrill all my life. And he said, well, you're going to have to figure out how to be a nomad eventually. And I said, well, I'd love to just go home sometime. And he said, well, that's never going to work. He said it won't fucking work because I've got to like running around wild criminal Tuesday. He said, you gotta get the fuck out. I said, well, I'm just a kid. He said, well, you gotta get slapped on Tuesday. So here was the Dear Magistrate letter that I sent to something that got submitted. I said, am I compulsory or voluntary? He said, well, believe it or not, this is my fucking handwriting in the hospital. I said, please understand my circumstance. I'm just quite delusional and happy all at the same time. But, legal status in the U.S., does it even matter? Yep, that's the one they call the stupid bill. And they said, well, I'm president and CEO of this bullshit. And, they're like, well, we don't give a fuck. I'm working with the consulate to get me lawyers to represent me. And the consulate said, no, we don't get lawyers. I'll call the UN. And I said, great. Have a fantastic Tuesday. And they said, well, you got any friends or family we can call? Because we got to figure out what drugs you're on. And I said, I'd like to call John Conyers, Brenda Lawrence, and then I actually wrote a fucking few letters, and there's a guy who may have a copy or not, I call him Alan, but his name's on here somewhere, and he'll figure it out. And I'll say, yeah, I have a copy of that letter. And I'll say, well, can you send it to me, because I lost it. Yeah, I walk around losing shit, but it's the British consulate. I said, well, I know I've got some British heritage, and Germany sounds very nice, but let's deal with the UK for Fantastic Day. And he said, well, I can't use my tail. Somebody's using it. And they were like, well, she's doing identity theft. We don't give a fuck. He's got to get stabbed or get out. And they were like, well, here's what we'll do. We're going to come to the consulate, talk to your doctor for 30 minutes, and then we'll walk in when we get there. And I said, okay, great. And Ellie came in, he's, what do you want? And I was like, I need to get out. And he's like, okay, when? And I said, it'd be fantastic if it was Tuesday, because, believe it or not, Thursday I've got a flight that's way over there. Go left for 5 days, and then you'll figure it out. And he was like, well, that ain't going to work. And I said, okay, so what do I got to do? And he said, you're walking around in a sheet. And I said, well, guess what? I got 2 shirts on today and long-ass hair. I'm going to the beach. And he said, well, it ain't going to work, so you got to take a pill. And I said, Ellie, perhaps you don't understand my language, so I'll tell it to somebody else. Talked to a few lawyers, and they were like, actually, it's a phenomenal argument. It'll make sense on Tuesday. And I said, great, I got to get to the fucking hospital next Tuesday. But last Tuesday would have been fantastic if I had got to that hospital in Vietnam. Why? Because in Vietnam they would have said, get out. And I said, give me a dong. And they were like, okay, here's a wrap. Wrap your foot on Tuesday. And, as I walked around through Barefootville, because y'all don't understand glory and honor of anything outside of the guy who ain't in the room. But just quickly, because this argument has to stand up in court eventually, and I might forget it on Tuesday, I'll say, walked into court and I said, the hospital, and I said, these shoes are, these are okay, believe it or not, but there they have very small feet. And they said, well, I got a 44, or a 41, or a 40, or whatever it was. I said, well, I wear a 45 or 6. And I'm like, if you can find one, I'll wear it. And he was like, well, I can't find that. And I said, well, my foot hurts really bad. I got to put my leg up. And he said, well, you do that on Tuesday. But you do it right now. We're going to strap you to a bed, throw you in a room, make you piss on yourself, and we'll call your cousin on Monday. And I said, I don't need to call anybody but your mother. And he said, well, you say that twice, and we'll strap you to a bed, and we'll let you there for 8 years. And I said, well, how about this? I ain't going to say nothing else. And I literally got silent. I said, ouch. And I said, oh, he's crazy as shit. Throw him in a room. I sat there silently, and I said, I've really got to use the urinal. As they strapped me to the bed, I said, can I please go to the bathroom for half a second before I get in there? And he said, no. I said, okay. Laid in there for maybe 3 or 4 hours, and I had to urinate it. My back started burning. I said, it just really, really hurts. And he said, well, this ain't going to work. So for another 3 hours, I laid there in pain, agonizing and screaming. And I said, you know what? I got to shake this bed, because they're not, maybe they took me to a room where there's nobody that works here. Believe it or not, I was in so much pain and agony that I thought I was in a room that they had, hadn't even existed, like a wing, because the building is huge. But, it's like, oh, he's way over there. Came out, and they were like, yeah, you're right here. You're right in front of the train. And I'm like, oh, great. How's Sally going to work? Is it come every 5 days or 50 minutes? And it's like, well, no, Sally's going to come every 17 years. Not talking about her, not talking about anybody else, but I got to say, yeah, I'll write you a letter, and I'll put it in the mail, and I'll send you a shoe, too. And then I'll say, you know what, it's a huge package. It's called a freaking lawsuit. And then the hospital's like, well, we'll let you out. And I said, great. How's it going to work? And he said, well, we've approved it. Believe it or fucking not, you're getting out next Wednesday. And I said, you know what, I'm going to miss a flight on Tuesday if I don't get out right now. And he said, well, guess what? I got a process. And I said, how's it going to work? And he said, well, you got to get do you need a prescription? I said, well, have I taken any medicine? He said, well, we gave you that shot one day, the one that had sulfur that made my eyes burn and my nose hurt, put me to sleep and made me drowsy for about a week. And I said, I'm not drowsy anymore. I'm actually eating, because believe it or not, that food made me so agitated that I was starving. And I was begging for food to everybody. And then, this guy Calvin said, I'll give you food. And then this guy Alan said, yeah, I'll give you food too. And then his mom said, whatever. And then 50 people said, we'll share each other. And I said, fantastic, Lamb. But, yeah, I don't understand testimony. But I'm not talking about your church. I'm talking about, let's go to Courtville. Because that building you want to talk about, let's talk about Fantastic Land all day. And Phantasmal Island. It's on the train. Go that fucking way. Trust me, you'll get there eventually. And then I said, that little symbol. They said, it means a whole fucking bunch. And I said, what's that motherfucker mean? And he said, well, give me the fax cover sheet. Type that box up nice and write everything else on it. And I said, well, who's that motherfucker? And I said, well, a guy named Mr. Mac I met in fucking Hong Kong. Is he a lawyer? I'm going to use hell no. Why? Because he don't know how to pick up a book. I say, well, I'm already a goddamn lawyer. But he actually does. Because I called and he said, well, I know how the book works. It's, you go to the high court if you need $500,000 or more. And then you go to the low court if you need less than that. And I said, okay, that's a Hong Kong dollar? Great. And he said, well, to be completely honest, I said, what's a barrister and a solicitor? And he said, here's the fucking difference. He said, one can go this way, one can go that way. And I said, okay, great. What the fuck can I do? He said, well, you can do whatever the fuck you want. He said, you can walk in there and say, it's Tuesday. I got to have a lawsuit on Friday. And he said, well, it ain't going to work, so I'll be back next month. Fantasticville. And I was like, well, it's going to cost you $500 to get back here. And I said, well, it's $500,000 on the line, so, fuck everything until Tuesday. If I miss 10 flights and they cost me $5,000 and, my money happens to dwindle because somebody's driving my car around, smashing it into buses, and somebody takes my credit card on Friday and says, well, I'm going to go crazy on Monday. I says, by the way, I'm going to buy a new Jeep. I was like, Mom, you're just quite delusional, but at the end of the day, I guess I have to pay everybody's credit card on Tuesday. So, Lauren calls and she's just like, I need 5 passports. And I said, bitch, I'll give you 1 passport. And she's like, well, I'm going to block you on Facebook. I said, great, you'll never know what the fuck I'm doing. And I said, by the way, I gave the goddamn ring away. And Mom's like, well, you give a ring away to an idiot and they're going to cut your head off. And I said, well, give it away to somebody who already cut their leg off. And you're just like, well, just give them glory and honor to a shoe, She lost her shoe. I said, well, here, take this ring. Give a fuck about it. But, I guess I'm delusional, manic, and crazy all at the same time. But technically, I say I'm a world traveler, investor, philanthropist bitch. And I add bitch to it because y'all don't understand how dogs work. I'll work like a dog on Tuesday if I can find the right job. Made it to Bang Sue. The language looks a little different here, but, that's what I'm going to call it. This is Bang Sue land. And at the end of the day, Bang Sue, this is a YouTube video for Fuckville, because y'all just want to say, oh, well, if you ain't having sex or talking this way, then get the fuck out. And I'm like, y'all have fun on Tuesday. Here's a YouTube video that says, this is going to be evidence in court for, let's call it next Tuesday, bitch.